Last time I was in Hawaii, I took micro 4/3. This time, I took full frame. I'm going to talk about why I took full frame equipment with me, the benefits of full frame, and also, in some cases, why I actually miss shooting with micro 4/3. Let's get into it. Welcome back, folks. My name's Shane. I'm at the Fort Darusi Park here in Waikiki, Hawaii. I'm going to talk about what I took and why. Now, if you're wondering why the light will continually change throughout this video, it's just after sunrise. I'm a madman. I got up early as to shoot a few videos ahead of doing all the fun stuff. Well, this is still fun, but you know what I mean, all the touristy stuff throughout the day. So I'm going to talk about what I took and why to Hawaii. And if you've been following the show, you know I was deliberating between taking the GH7 and the 10 to 25mm f1.7 zoom lens, or potentially a G9 Mark II, or the S5 Mark IIX and the Lumix S9. And for this particular trip, I went full frame as opposed to micro 4/3. A massive thank you to everyone who commented on my video where I was packing my camera bag. I was so on the fence about what to bring, whether I just go all in on full frame, whether I go all in on micro 4/3, or whether I take a mix of them both. I kind of wish in hindsight I probably should have taken a mix of them both, and we're going to talk about why coming right up. But the first camera that I took is this is the Lumix S9, and I took the 20 to 60mm kit lens. This is f3.5 to 5.6, and as I mentioned in my original video when I was packing my bag, the great thing about this particular combo is the camera body is so small and light compared to a lot of the other camera bodies. It doesn't look as professional as well, so you can get away with just shooting with it and no one seems to really care. And this zoom range is really versatile. 20mm, you're getting that sort of super wide field of view, but with hybrid zoom on this, I can punch way further in when I'm shooting video or photos. At 60mm, you're not just restricted to the numbers on the lens. The hybrid zoom feature sort of crops in digitally. You don't have to do anything other than just turn the zoom ring. So I'm a huge fan of this combination. After shooting with the S9 over in Osaka, Japan earlier this year, I ended up buying a second one of these because they're so good, they're fun to use, and that's what it's all about. Anytime you're out just shooting, you want something small and light that you can get great results from, and this was an absolute no-brainer. Now, the second camera that I bought is the one that I'm talking with right now, and this is the Lumix S5 Mark IIX. So this has active cooling, which is what you want when it gets hot. It's already 24 degrees Celsius. It's windy here, but it's one of those sort of situations where I don't want the camera overheating, which is something that would happen with the S9. Now, given that it's not super hot, I might have been able to get away with just bringing this, but I thought I'm going to bring a camera where I don't even have to think about it. So that's what I've got in terms of full frame equipment, but I have one other camera packed in the bag. This last camera is the one that I've used most since getting here. You'll never guess what it is. It's the GoPro Hero 10 Black. Now, the GoPro is definitely my most used camera anytime I travel. I always have it on me. So if we're going to the beach, I'll have it on me because you can take it into the water, you can throw it around, you've got super fast frame rates in HD, and it also shoots 4K at 120 frames per second. And I find the color science on this to be every bit as nice as more professional cameras, or it's very easy to match in post-production. I don't really take too many photographs with this. I love using the time-lapse feature. And I also love just being able to shoot 4K at 60 and then slowing it down on a 30p timeline once I get home, or even 4K 120. It's a really versatile little camera. If you're traveling anywhere and you just want a one and done camera that can pretty much cover everything except for low light and indoors, if you're outside I'm talking about mostly, then the GoPro or any action camera like this will be a no-brainer. Let's talk about lenses. So I have the 20 to 60mm f3.5 to 5.6 kit lens on the S9. This is kind of like glued on here. I haven't actually shot too many photos or videos with any of my other two that I'm currently shooting with right now. So this is the 35mm f1.8 prime. This is a really versatile lens for the S5 Mark IIX. If you're shooting in full frame mode, you're getting 35mm. If you're shooting in APS-C crop mode or doing any sort of slow motion B-roll, 4K 60 or whatever, then it's basically a 50mm lens thereabouts anyway. So it's giving you a very versatile range, especially for talk to camera pieces like this. And the third one is the 18mm f1.8 prime. This 18mm paired with the S5 Mark IIX will actually give me better low light photographs than the original S5 because we have handheld high resolution mode, which takes a whole bunch of photos in camera, compiles them in camera, and you get like a 100 megapixel image at the end. So it drives the noise down and it looks absolutely stunning. I just took a few shots off the balcony last night to test it out, and I was really impressed with the end result, especially with this little guy right here. This 18mm focal length is definitely one of my favorites. I was sort of deliberating whether or not I need it because I do have 20mm on the wide end of this kit lens, but I'm actually glad that I've got it. But it's maybe one lens too many. This 18mm lens gives me a super wide field of view. I can be really close to the camera if I do need to address it like this, which is great. I'm within arm's length, but it looks like I'm further away. It's still giving me a nice background blur without being too over the top. And this is a great performing lens for vlogging as well. This is another lens you could just do as your one and done vlogging setup with an S5 Mark II, or of course the S9. So a really great lens. Now I was on the fence whether or not I actually take a tripod with me, and I did. So I'm shooting with the Ulanzi Coleman F38 or 0F38, whichever way it goes. But basically this particular tripod's nice and light. It's probably not my lightest tripod, but it's the most functional. It's nice and quick and easy to set up. And I did a full review of this about a year or so ago, and if you missed that, I'll link it down in the description box. It weighs just over 1 kilogram. I thought, I'm taking this with me. It's so good. When it comes to image quality, the S5 Mark IIX and the S9 are essentially the same camera. Now, some would argue that the photographic modes on the S5 Mark IIX are more powerful than the S9. I would agree with that as well, but for the kind of stuff I'm doing where I'm not a professional photographer, I just like to shoot photos of our day-to-day stuff that we're doing here and the sights that we're seeing. It does more than enough for a guy like me. And I think most people who are doing any sort of travel stuff or vlogging will absolutely love the end result out of the S9. The photographic capabilities are better than I think people were led on to believe. No mechanical shutter, sure, if that's a problem for you, or if it doesn't have a flash port. You know, most people under the age of 30 or 40 probably don't even care about that unless you're shooting photos in a studio. So for just general purpose photography, the S9's an absolute beast, as is the S5 Mark IIX. Now let's talk about the advantages of micro four thirds and full frame. So we've got the advantage going to the S5 Mark IIX and S9 being the obvious improvement in low light photography and videography, and also the fact that the image quality coming off these full frame sensors is fantastic. But there's crops, which is why I would have preferred, I think, to still have a micro four thirds camera with me. In hindsight, I probably should have taken the GH7 or G9 Mark II with me for this particular trip, because you can switch modes between 4K 30, 60 and 120, and there's no penalties in terms of crops or autofocus performance like you'd find on the S5 Mark IIX. Now, the cool thing about the S9 is it actually has better autofocus than the S5 Mark IIX, which kind of sucks for S5 Mark IIX owners, but it is better, especially in those slow motion frame rates. So you're getting an advantage there. But essentially it still crops in, which made it harder for me to choose which lenses to bring. So this 35mm seemed to be kind of like the sweet spot. I love shooting with a 50mm, so I thought I'll bring this 35mm and talk to camera in that 35mm mode. And if I need to shoot any B-roll with this particular setup, I can switch it to 4K 60, get that APS-C crop and get roughly a 50mm field of view. Another nice advantage to micro four thirds are the smaller and lighter lenses on the most part. Now, this full frame 20 to 60mm lens isn't large by any stretch of the imagination, but the 12 to 35mm is much smaller, and it's a constant f2.8. In hindsight, that would have been a really great lens to pair with the GH7 or G9 Mark II. For this particular trip, it would have been more than enough. But I have grown to appreciate having a 20mm lens. So the 12 to 35 for micro four thirds is the equivalent of 24mm, which is still fine. Of course, it absolutely is. But 20mm will just give you a slightly wider field of view that I prefer, especially for doing landscapes or just general travel photography. Another huge advantage to micro four thirds with the G9 Mark II and GH7 is I would have been able to shoot 4K at 120 frames per second instead of just shooting HD at 120 frames per second. Now, both of these cameras I think can go up to 180 frames in HD, but the resolution and quality win goes to micro four thirds in this particular case. So if you need 4K at 120 frames per second, G9 Mark II or the GH7 are the best choices for the job. But I thought I could live with 4K 60. I'm making it work, but yeah, the GoPro is the only camera that can do it. Crazy. All right, I'm in the shade. I've got my sunglasses off. We're going to talk about some of the things I really love about Hawaii here. So one of the things I really dig about this place is obviously the weather. It's so consistent, even though it's coming into winter. As of shooting this video, it's between 23 degrees and 27 degrees Celsius every single day. I'll put the conversion on screen because I'm not good with Fahrenheit, but it's warm. It's great. I could wear shorts every day if I chose to. It's funny, some of the locals here are complaining that it's kind of cold. I'm like, this is so much better than where I'm from as of right now. When we're coming into summer, which is crazy. It'll get hot in Melbourne, Australia at some point, but yeah, the weather here is always consistent. It's really beautiful. Secondly, there's really cool plants, trees, and birds here, stuff that we're not used to seeing back home, and that's always fun for me. There's a couple of beautiful trees behind me right here. They're just really something else, and there's some massive ones like this as well. Just really sort of regal looking old school trees. Kind of reminds me of like a bonsai plant, but big. They're super cool. Thirdly, of course, the beaches here are just stunning. You get this neon blue water, and if you wear polarized sunglasses like I do, it looks even better. So I'll show you some B-roll samples of that on screen. It's stunning, and it's absolutely stunning. I've got to get back now and pack the bag and recharge the batteries and meet up with Rhiannon, and we're gonna go for another huge walk. And I guess that's maybe number 4. I love the fact you can just walk everywhere. Each day so far, I've clocked up 10 kilometers. So hopefully I will lose the sugar gut over here, and we'll be good to go. But anyway, thanks again for watching, folks. My name's Shane. I hope you've enjoyed the video. Leave a thumbs up if you can. I'll try and shoot a few videos while I'm out over here. This isn't the intention of the trip, but it's good to get up early, get some stuff done, keep the content flowing, and share with you a little bit about what's going on and how all the equipment's performing and all that kind of stuff. So stay tuned for more. Don't forget to subscribe, and I will catch you on the next one. See ya.